Okay, let's do it. So, thanks to all of you who are joining us live, and to those who are joining on just the past broadcast or the video, that's cool too. My name is Nick Durazio. I'm the Director of Corporate Strategy at Inven Global, and I am here on another fantastic Tuesday to share another esports lecture. So, here's just some, context of this. I first gave this lecture in South Korea. There was a gaming convention there called G-Star. And the goal of this lecture then was to just let all of the Korean business and esports people kind of get a feel for what the North American esports market is like. And it was also so they could get a feel of to what Inven Global is doing within this market and kind of how we make money. So Nick, wow, why are you bringing up a presentation on the esports market? I thought this was supposed to help me get a job. This was supposed to help me find my career in esports, and it is. The idea behind this is in order to first get a job at something or to first advance your career, you need to understand that place. You need to understand the industry, because if you understand the industry, then you understand what jobs are within that field. Now, right now, most people who want to work in esports or gaming, but I'm going to focus on esports for this, they don't exactly know how esports makes their money. They don't exactly know what's going on. What job do I really need? Should I be a pro player? Should I be tournament organizer? A lot of people don't really know what's going on because there is no degree for this, right? Well, I've gone through the hard work. I've gone through the esports career for over a decade now. I've been pretty much every single job you can be within esports. So, without further ado, I want to share with you guys what I think the esports industry is, what I think the opportunities are in North America, and I hope you can walk away with also just some general advice. So, let's get started. How to join the North American esports market, strategies and solutions towards creating an authentic U.S. presence in esports. Now, what that means if you're not an esports media company is branding, right? Is marketing. This is something that I actually need to do better myself because I've always been on the behind the scenes. But now that the COVID-19 is hitting us, we all need to be more in person and more of front facing of our jobs than ever. There's going to be more and more competition for esports jobs and more competition for any job that is work from home. Hirers are going to want to hire someone with an active social media and a thriving sense of community over someone who's not, simply because so much of any online business now is marketing. You want your employers to be marketing for you. So, with that said, let's start on me, right? Who am I? So why are you even listening to me? Man, should I do this every single lecture? I guess. Well, I'm Nick Durazio. I've been an esports journalist. I've been all over the world. This is what I did for a good chunk of my career. I would just sit here and interview players. I had a chance to interview a lot of really cool people. Here are just some highlights. There's me with Faker on the right there. I'm pretty proud of that one. Obviously, we got your Jeff Kaplan and then your Mike Morheim on the left. So that was cool for me. I absolutely love esports. I've been in esports for a very long time. Shout outs to my friend Cassandra there. This was us. We were in China during the Gold Club World Championship. This was for Heroes of the Storm. I've also done all sorts of public speaking. This was me speaking at the World Cyber Games in China, and this is actually me speaking at this really cool esports journalism panel that we put on at our Inven Global esports conference. And then here is me in a suit that appears to be marketing some sort of focus group test that we were doing for Power Rangers. So why am I showing you all of these pictures? Well, I hope it gives you a sense that my career working in esports, I'm not picky. And to get started, I wasn't picky at all. I would literally do anything. I was If you needed me to wear a suit, I'll do it. If you need me to get a crowd excited, I'll do it. If you need me to write about your video game, I'll do it. There's so much work that happens within the esports industry every day. Here's just the first piece of advice. If you're willing to do the work, then bam, you're going to find a job. That's as easy as I can put it. Obviously, there are a lot of advantages I had. One, I've been a gamer my entire life. I've been an esports minded person my whole life, right? I've always had access to a computer, and I've always had access to these online games, so I was able to raise my level of like understanding of the scene and my contributions to the scene early. However, what you need to do is find out how you can do this. Again, just kind of replace company with individual. You need to get started immediately on creating an authentic presence within North America or within any country that you live in. So if you're trying to find a job within esports, I wouldn't focus on who's hiring. I wouldn't ask people, hey, what opportunities do you have? I mean, obviously, yeah, that's an easy way if you know the right people and you have the connection. But like everyone else, if you don't have those connections, what you need to do is just get out there. Obviously, the easiest way to do it is social media, right? You need to participate. One thing I love about modern esports fans is they participate way more than current esports fans. So you have a bunch of people on Twitter that are constantly engaging with pro players, with social media accounts of esports orgs. And even though they're just fans, I'd actually say that they're farther along towards getting a job than anyone else that is outside the community. So first step, you need to create that authentic presence. Now, here is a little bit about what I think is the most common type of business within esports, and this is kind of what we do at Inman Global. Again, this is going to be a little bit of both. I want to explain how I found my career, but also explain how esports works. I feel like if you really understand what makes this industry tick, then it'll be easier for you to find your place. So, when I say presence, what I mean is people notice you online. Now, at the very basic, that's web traffic, right? That's consumer loyalty. So they're either going back to your Twitter account, going back to your Medium account, or in our case, they're going back to a website. This third bullet point, industry influence. That may sound a little like nebulous, or if you're really pessimistic, it sounds like, like cynical. Like, why do I want to influence anyone? I'm just about the game. Well, no, at the end of the day, we're all trying to make esports better, and we're all trying to put on the best esports things, right? Well, it turns out when everyone's trying to do that, some people have good ideas on how to do it, some people have bad ideas how to do it. You don't want to be working for people with bad ideas, or you don't want to be the person who has bad ideas. If you're constantly on the side of good ideas, or you're thinking of your own good ideas, that's when you start getting influence. Because, hey, most people don't want to figure out what to do. They just want to get told what to do. So maybe you're one of those people who all of your jobs before has been, I want to be told what to do. You are going to struggle finding a job within esports or finding a career within gaming and esports, because right now we need people that are thinking of ideas. We need people that are thinking of new ways in which we can leverage all of this awesome momentum. Obviously, revenue opportunities when it comes to a job seeker. If your employment within any company isn't going to make that company money, you're probably not going to get a job there. This is a really important thing for people to realize. I would say it to my journalist peers all of the time. It's our job to make the platform popular, not our job to get popular because of the platform. As in, a lot of people are trying to siphon the e-clout and the revenue from esports, and they're not trying to actually add to it. So don't ever be someone who's always trying to take from esports. You need to find a way to generate revenue. How are you making money off of people's love of competitive games? Now, valued partners, on a corporate level, obviously, you need people to do cool things. But on a personal level, it's even more important. If you want to start something great in esports, you're not going to do it on your own. Not only do we all share the same audience, but we half the time we share the same spaces. We share the same coast. We share the same time zones, right? If I'm trying to put on some like event, maybe I shouldn't do it at the same time zone of this other big tournament. Now, how am I supposed to know that? Only if I talk with them. So you have to work with people in this industry. That's why I'm, giving this information out for free. So here's a little bit of story about us. InVen, as I'm sure many of you watching know, is absolutely massive in Korea, right? InVen was part of the first group that kind of created esports in South Korea. They were an esports media company, and they were journalists. They focused on getting all the details right that the more professional journalists couldn't get right because they weren't gamers. This is a group of gamers. 15 years later, well, more than that, they've done absolutely fantastic. They dominate South Korea. Now, InVen Global, back in 2016, we started, and it was just, okay, I guess because InVen's doing so good in Korea, I wonder how this will work in the US. Now, if you want to get to be the more history behind it, the reason InVen Global even first started, and actually, let me see if I can get this page full screened again. I actually went out. There we go. Good, great. So the reason InVen Global got started is because InVen noticed an influx of traffic that all came from the U.S. They said, wow, why are all of these Americans wanting to read our interviews about Faker? And why are all these Americans? Well, it's because esports was growing in the U.S. So naturally, they said, okay, well, let's create like an American version of InVen. InVen Global was born. Now, our strategy, led by myself and my team, is we needed to create this presence, right? So this presence was very important. It's how we started the company at InVen Global, and it's also how many people start their jobs. So, did it work? Well, we actually think yes, it did. So these numbers are actually old, and we've only gone higher since. But things are going really, really fantastic. Our social media is huge, and we've done all this just within 3 years. We already have our esports conference. Now it's its 3rd year. They're all digital now, but we've done really, really great work. So I think the strategy works, and if you trust the success we've created from InVen Global, trust that this strategy works in trying to seize the opportunities within like North American esports, as well as giving yourself a bigger presence, and also like understanding esports. So let's just go over kind of where people make money, well, like in esports, and how you can maybe make some of that. So let's get started. This is just a snapshot of like the industry right now. These numbers are actually pre the coronavirus, but they're essentially the same, especially in scenarios in which we like recover from this. So let's just focus on the past because we know those numbers are real, right? In 2018, there was 6 billion hours spent watching a pro gaming, right? Now here's the massive part. In 2021, they predict that to jump up to 20 billion hours. And honestly, it's probably going to be even more now because more people are watching gaming more than ever. If you look at esports revenue, we already surpassed 1.1 billion in 2019. And again, all signs pointed positive. In 2021, this is a really interesting stat by Syracuse University. They say esports will have more viewers than every professional sports league except for the NFL. So that's a pretty huge number, but it also shows very important culture shift. So start, keeping that in mind. Esports is replacing these sports leagues in terms of eyeballs and like people watching. So anything you may know about the sports industry and the jobs that exist there, those are also going to exist in esports. So you could be an agent, you could be a manager, you could be a graphic designer, you could create video highlights. There's all sorts of things. Think of esports as we're not the same as sports in terms of like obviously the content, but in terms of the way we make money and like a new media, it's very, very similar. So why is North America seeing this growth? Well, there's many reasons. For one, the esports infrastructure in North America was always behind, as in South Korea, and then as a result, Asia has had a head start when it comes to embracing esports culture. Their players were better because they had coaches and staff, and everyone took it more seriously. As a result, their players became more famous, and then you have more fans, then you have more revenue. Now your pro players getting paid more money, etc. etc. By the time esports came like mainstream in the U.S., that infrastructure wasn't there. However, in 2019, that changed. We saw some real concrete numbers to show that, like North America, we're finally catching up. 32% of all esports revenue in 2019 was generated by North America. So that's bigger than China, that's bigger than Korea, and the rest of the world is only 38%. So again, keep that in mind. That's why you're seeing so much interest in esports in North America, and it's also why there's more career opportunities than ever. Now, I wouldn't put too much stock into this number because, like I said, this research was pre-coronavirus. However, I still think that the end prediction of by 2025, in the future, like esports is going to be massive. It's going to be way bigger. Expect 10x growth, stuff like that. So it's a good time to be trying to find a job. Now, for us, though, this was our problem. So maybe you can learn from the InVen global team, right? Our problem is that the U.S. is huge and is very far away from Korea, which was all of our strength. And it's also very, very different, right? So how do we take this successful formula, successful team, and how do we bring it over to the U.S.? Now, that is a problem that everyone's currently trying to solve in terms of looking for your own career and or job. Imagine if you can be the person to solve this problem. Imagine if you can be the person to help figure out how to convert the popularity of esports in one country to the popularity of esports in your country, or like in North America. And you could do this in any way. You could be it as a content creator, you could be it as a streamer, as a writer, you could be a journalist, you could be a broadcaster. I mean, there's so many things you could do once you start understanding the problems that stop people from making money in esports. Now, our strategy was to say, okay, we have to just conclude, like, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, right? The differences between Korea and the U.S. are huge. So we don't want to focus on those differences. I don't want to lament the fact that the U.S. is so much bigger, and I didn't want to get stressed over the fact that, the U.S. has a much different relationship with like internet, and our internet is slower, and on average, people are less literate when it comes to video games and computers. There's many reasons, but there are some things that are the same, right? So what we said is, gamers are the same everywhere you go. We looked upon our own strengths and experience as gamers and said, what is it all gamers have in common? And then from then, we just created not some rules, but some ideas. We created a knowledge base and things that really defined our company. For one, we think that all gamers like joyful authenticity. So gamers love it when people care about the game as much as they do. This pretty much fuels a streamer fandom. This fuels a pro player fandom. This idea that you're not weird for taking this game too seriously. That's at its very core of esports appeal. The other thing that almost all esports fans love is top tier info. When you're trying to get really good at a video game, you demand information, you demand content. For the longest time in esports, and we see it even more now, shout out to you potential content creators. We've seen it for the longest time. The demand for esports content on how to get good at certain video games far outweighs the actual, the demand outweighs the, like how much we actually have. I'm completely blanking. No one is creating as much content as we need. People need content about how to get good at games, but there's a huge gap from that. And then, of course, lastly, we figured that every single esports fan they respect the pro player opinion. Now, the pro player opinion is very, very important, and I believe that as a content creator or as a news organization, when you start to ignore the pro player perspective, what you're actually doing is putting player skill and putting the competition lower. And when it comes to esports, you should never do that. The competition has to be at the very height, because the moment we stop being competitive, then we just start being gaming, right? So this is the things that we figured out. And I think this last part, and maybe these last 2 points, is important for you if you're trying to figure out, am I looking for a career in gaming or esports? Because if you don't like competitive video games, I mean salty, sometimes toxic, well, it doesn't have to be salty and toxic, but video games that invoke emotions, people yelling, the drama of someone leaving a team, the upsets, that is what is at his very heart, so we need to keep that high. Now, this is essentially the too long didn't read of this, right? We needed to figure out what is the universal appeal of our esports offerings, right? Think of us as just a bunch of content creators back in 2016, and we needed to make a website, right? So we built a strategy around the things we knew people would like. That's very important. We weren't taking risks. We looked at ourselves and said, well, what is the type of content I watch? And this is very important. I'll mention this in a lot of my lectures, but you need to take note of your own consumption habits if you're trying to work with an esports, because this is an industry that runs off consumption. And if you don't know what esports people consume, it's going to be very hard for you to make tournaments, to participate in tournaments, to be an advertiser, to be a developer. All the jobs you may want to have in esports, it's really hard if you don't actually understand them. So I understand esports people by trusting in my own esports love and then seeing what's the stuff that really gets me excited. So once we figured out what we wanted to do, we had 4 things to do. And again, I suggest this is something you can do. You can apply these tricks or tips either to your team or to your own career efforts. Number 1, identify who is it you want to engage with. This can simply mean who do you want to be popular with, right? Does this group of people exist online? With esports, it's easy. They exist on Twitter, on Reddit, on Twitch. Well, great. That's where you should live. You should then become credible within those ecosystems. If your audience lives on Twitter, Twitch, and Reddit, well, you better start using Twitter, Twitch, and Reddit. I'd bump that to Discord when it comes to esports. You need to use these things and then become reliable on them. Third, you need to find your voice. Now that you've found this community and you've walked in and you've lurked, okay, what can you bring? What can you bring different? And this is very important. You don't have to be loud or charismatic or bombastic. You don't need to yell. You don't need to be a streamer. No. When it says voice, think about what can you contribute. Sometimes that's a really, really great data set, or that's a really, really great tool you built, or that's a really, really great image you drew, or it's a great meme you made. Trust me, it does not have to be the thing you see most of, which is commentators and talkers and people like that. Lastly, you need to do something good. Now, this is maybe where I think a lot of people lose their way, especially the people in the old guard of esports. Now, I love them, but I think they've stopped trying to do something good within esports because they've just been trying to survive. So if there's one criticism I'll say about my generation of esports workers is we've stopped trying to do something good. We just found our jobs. We're so lucky to be working in esports. We don't want to rock the boat anymore. But I challenge you and I encourage you that it's not only good advice to do something good, but it feels good too. So focus on doing things that the community needs. Not necessarily, I think this a clickbait thing would get a lot of views, or I'm trying to farm for Reddit clout because Nick says I need to be popular. No. Just try to focus on doing something good. And you can often find out what that is by, as you lurk, you say, what does this community need? What do they yearn for all the time? So again, I'm just going to like focus on some of these things in greater detail. This is how we identified our audience. We looked at what social media they use. Once we found out what social media we use, we found out, okay, well, what are the influencers that dominate these social medias? On Twitch, that's easy, but you can also do the same thing on Instagram, right? Then we need to look at what is the content that these people are making. What are the content that they're already consuming? Maybe it's because the Twitter people do this or Twitch people do that, right? This isn't because we're just trying to steal ideas. It's because we needed to understand the market first. And again, if you're a job seeker and you can come to a job interview with information, like about this stuff, where esports people live, where gamers live. If you can make it your brand to be on the pulse of this culture and then confidently talk about that, you can find so many jobs and so many different esports and gaming avenues. This is kind of what I figured out. This is my top 10 or top 7 personal list. Reddit, Twitch, Twitter, Discord, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. They're all important. I personally like to go after small to medium communities that are filled with engagement. I feel like you get tons more recognition there and you get more actual insights. Obviously, you want to go on the biggest Reddits and the biggest, Twitter spheres, but that has the tendency to being a little late to the curve every time because everyone's trying to do it. It's very hard to compete there. So I found success in going after smaller communities first. Maybe you already have a community that follows you, but start small is helpful. Here's something that this is an important note about doing business in North America. Because we're so large and there's so much distraction, you must focus on getting people's attention. I know that sounds obvious, but it's like marketing 101, all right? No one is looking at what you're doing yet. Number 2, you need to become credible. Now, I've always thought the best way to become credible is just do no harm and help people. I help people a lot. I think that increases my credibility because I help people and people say, oh yeah, Nick, that guy helped me out. But at the end of the day, there's no shortcut to it, right? And there's no shortcut to try to build your own reputation. When it comes to getting a job in esports, this isn't like med school where there's so many people that are going in and there's only one route to do it and it's accreditation, so you need to get straight A's. That's just not how it works, right? So it's like in esports, it's about what you've done, who trusts you, how long you've been here. So those are the things you need to start figuring out. Do not apply to a job or an opportunity and just flex your passion. Do not do that. Passion is the most common thing in esports. Everybody loves esports. Everyone thinks they're passionate about esports. All right, that's not what you should do. What you should do is do the work. There's no shortcut to becoming a credible online news site. So, we just needed to do this stuff, post content every day. We really needed to work hard. So you have to work hard and there's no shortcut. But if you know what you're trying to aim at, I think maybe the work gets a little more fun. Here's, again, I mentioned, it's very important to keep track of your own consumption habits, your own consumption routines. What is it you do? For example, the things that I usually read or the things that I've noticed do very, very well and on North American social media is when a developer gives a very transparent update on their game. Man, people love that. People love it when social media brands interact with other brands. So when FlyQuest does something with Team Liquid, that post gets engagement and everyone wins, right? Also, people love it when you spotlight fans or when you spotlight the different communities. This is a great way to not only do something good, but to get a lot of trust. If you focus on making your job about working with other people and highlighting their great work, well, that's just usually the type of person people want to work with. Here's just a note, and I feel like I say this every lecture. Gamers are extremely critical. They smell a fake a mile away. So just talk about what you know. Be transparent. If in a job interview someone asks you, so do you like a Counter-Strike, or if you don't know the game, just say you don't know the game. There's no shame in that, right? There's so many games, there's so many genres. You can't be expected to be an expert in in all of them. In fact, I found it's better to just stick with what you love and then just passionately talk about that. I love fighting games, so I talk about fighting games more than anything. And it's nice because I don't ever need to worry about, am I impressing anyone? Just don't do that. Gamers can always sense when someone is trying to kind of fake it. Here's something I think is a perfect example. You can't rush this credibility, especially not in esports. We all saw what happened with the H1Z1 League. That's $27 million just lost. And honestly, I think it's because they rushed it. I think they misunderstood how a communities embrace esports, and they seemed in a big rush to take advantage of this opportunity that didn't exist. They thought, and who knows who convinced them, that this battle royale thing would be like the next big thing. Yeah, not in the way that H1Z1 did it. So you can't rush this stuff. I don't recommend you rush this stuff. Though, to be honest, I think esports is kind of finished with that problem. We used to have a bad problem with that, but I don't think anyone's trying to rush things anymore. Number 3, finding your voice. This is probably the most important part of the lecture in terms of individuals. Again, NA is very large. If you live in NA and you want a job, well, guess what? There's tons of others that do. Just assume people smarter than you, with better degrees, with more money, want the same job as you. This is some advice that I was given, right? So that's just a reality. So all right, so how are you going to be different, right? Because if you're just the same choice, then who's ever hiring you is just going to say, okay, well, who can I pay less money? Or who has the higher degree? And then bam, it's not in your control anymore. But if you focus on a voice that's unique, if you find your tone, what can you contribute? What makes me special? Then all of a sudden, you kind of realize, oh, wait a minute, I have something very unique. And if they want to hire this, then they're going to hire me. That's it. If they want to hire someone that does what I do, they can only hire me. This is something I think is important with content, because this is also for content creators, right? If you're not doing something unique, why are they going to come to you? But it's also important, again, for job seekers. There's a lot of opportunities within esports and gaming right now, and I think the first step towards understanding them is to make yourself unique. Now, I personally think voice is about internal motivation. Voice is about value. And it's about how you like to make other people feel. How you like to make other people feel. So, for example, my voice, what I try to do, what motivates me as a person is teaching. I love to show people how great something is by explaining all the cool things about it. I've always been someone who gets very excited. I've always been someone who really likes to talk to people. I love interviews. I'm naturally very curious. So for me, I've entered this esports scene. I was just a player myself way back in the day. And I realized, you know what? I love this game, but I'm not necessarily a pro player. I don't have the cutthroat mentality. I don't mind to lose, right? I just don't have that drive. But what I did have was a drive for journalism and to be curious and to understand the player stories and the human stories. And I also had to learn, I had a desire to put on events and to put on big networking events because I love to party and I love to talk to people. So if you look at my career, it is simply an extension of myself. I'm not trying to fake it. I'm not trying to fit myself anywhere that I have to put on a show or fool people. I literally write about esports because it's the only thing I'm good at, and I talk about esports because it's something I'm very comfortable at, and I teach about esports because it's something that I guess I watched my father do my whole life. He was a teacher too, and I think I just like to teach. So that, to me, was easy to find my voice, and I highly suggest you do it as well. All of my sisters are gaming. I came from a very big family of gamers, and I love to see what my sisters are doing with their careers and their jobs, because my sister absolutely loves gaming, so she's just making her own video game. She's just doing it. And it's so smart. She's young. She doesn't care if it's good. She doesn't care if anyone likes it. She's not trying to make money off it. There's all sorts of things she needs to learn first, but I see this game get better and better and better every single day. And things like that, again, if I had to hire someone for my team, do I want to hire someone who's same age, same experience, same everything, but this person made their own video game and this person wants to get paid to make their own video game for the first time, right? So always try to be doing something and find your voice. That helps me a lot. This is a nice little way to sum it up. Voice is the reality of your actual goals and ambitions. I do still believe that gamers are very, very keen on someone who is fake, and I think we can all figure that out because of stuff like this. Now, if you remember the esports dress, I do. Now, the esports dress was a good idea. Maybe. It was a good idea to think about women, think about design for women, and to say, yeah, you know what? I haven't seen any like female gender-coded player jerseys. Sure. But just look at how tone deaf it all is. You know, just look at all of it. This doesn't speak that this person has been in esports for a long time, nor that they really care about women. It doesn't really look comfortable. It still looks like just your generic esports ad, and it looks like it's trying to pander. And like, look at this tweet. Like, it's hard to imagine that this isn't a parody, but it is. You know, this stay strong. We respect you. Proudly supporting. Tag every female gamer you know. Like, it's just so obvious. So I actually made this tweet. I was the one that started the social dunk on the esports dress. It's the only thing I've ever done that's cool, right? But I just wanted to let you guys know this. The reason this is so important is because all I did was highlight how like inauthentic this whole thing was. That's all I did. And then esports Twitter and gaming Twitter, they did the rest because they're very, very keen on if you're being real or not. It's why there's so much imposter syndrome in the industries, because people are like aware that's kind of the first thing that most gamers are the most critical of. But it is something you need to keep note of. So, you know, stay within your like own comfort zone. And if you're trying to do something, if you're trying to branch out something new, ask for help. For example, this whole esports dress was such a PR disaster is because they didn't even involve any women in the process of making the dress or marketing the dress. The whole thing was just silly. So here's one last little bit of advice on finding your voice, right? This is something I heard and I really love it. 75.3 billion people live on the earth. 75.3 billion. So just imagine if just 1% of those people really found what you were saying interesting and really loved your voice, really connected with who you are, right? Only 1%. You would be the most influential person ever, right? And yet, we often don't think about, well, I'm going to go put out this message, and if just 1% of the people that see it like it, I'm a success. But I think that's the truth, though. As long as 1% of people like you, you're on the right track. What you don't want to do is try to get 100% of people liking you, because you never will, and that's just a very common like amateur mistake to try to get everyone to just be like in love with you. Lastly, do something good, all right? In terms of trying to find a job, this is probably the most like you know, like I don't want to say I'm trying to like socially game the system, but doing something good is like, it's a very positive thing, right? Right now, we all have tons of downtime. So you could be spending that downtime just like mucking around, or you could be trying to do something good. How can you create for yourself, not for your company, create an authentic presence in North America, right? That's the first question. Well, after you've identified your audience, after you've established that you mean no harm, I'm good, and after you found out what you want to do, the next step is you have to do something good. You have to put all the things you've done, and now do something good. So are you going to create an event? Are you going to stream something? Are you going to support something noble? Are you going to start creating content, right? How can you collaborate with people? This is very important. Revenue neutral. What can you do for people that doesn't cost money? Just your sweat. What can you do to people where they help you, but it doesn't cost their money? Just their sweat. If you can find ways and consistently find ways for you to work with people and both of you are revenue neutral, I promise you, you will find a job within esports eventually. You will find a thriving career because you will become the person that sees opportunities when there is none. You will become the person that brainstorms positively, and you will become the person that creates jobs when other people think, oh, well, there's nothing that I can do right now. So this is, I I'll kind of end here with, it's kind of a trick question. So we all know that Fortnite was in the Avengers, right? Here, I went too far. So we all know that Fortnite was in the Avengers, right? So, and also the Avengers were in Fortnite. So which company do you think paid more to be in like each other's IP? Do you think that Epic paid Marvel tons of money because they wanted these like Marvel things like in their game? Or do you think Marvel paid Epic tons of money because they wanted, you know, a Fortnite to be inside their movie, which it was. It was in the last Marvel movie. You know, Thor was playing it. Well, here's the trick question. No one paid for anything. It was revenue neutral. Neither side paid for anything because they both knew that they were killing it, and they both knew, hey, listen, if we do this together, we can make tons of money and be tons of branding for the both of us. That's what you need to be doing. You need to be finding ways in which two orgs can come together and do something bigger for like revenue neutral. So that's a very good strategy. The best in the business are doing it, and it's a good way. Here's just an example of something we did good. So the Invent Global Esports Conference is now in its third year. I've always hear so much positive stories about this. I hear people getting jobs from this. I hear people networking from this. I hear people saying how much they enjoy the conference and how much they learn. Well, we did that because it was something the esports industry needed. This event didn't exist before us, and we knew that it was needed because they had these events in Korea all the time. So again, we're able to now not only hire people, but find people jobs, bring everyone together, and do something fantastic for esports because our end goal was always to help. Our end goal was always to make the esports industry better. So here's just some shout outs to all the people who enjoyed last year's IGC. Identify our audience, you build trust, you find the voice, and then you create something good, right? If you really, really want a surefire way to do something within gaming and esports, boy, I sure do miss leaving my house. So anyways, this was our strategy. This was my strategy towards trying to find opportunities within esports in North America. You can pretty much do this with any other industry, but it's the most fun within gaming because I love gaming and I love esports. If you have any questions at all, you can please just message me on Twitter. I'll be answering absolutely any questions. You can also be, I have a Google form that people have been filling out and they've been asking questions. So you can also fill that out, and you can also stay tuned for the next lecture. So my next lecture will be every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Oh, look, looks like we have a comment. Are you going to share the links for slides? You know what? That's a very good idea. I will share the links for the slides. So you can check out these slides, topics on invenglobal.com. I'll write a little like report up on it and like any of that. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining me on my lecture. If you have any want to get in the industry, by all means, check out Invent Global on Twitter, or you can check us out just at www.inventglobal.com. My name is Nick Durazio. I've had a fantastic time. Oh, and thank you so much in chat, Mr. Something. Thank you for watching the lecture. That is the man's name. I didn't just say Mr. Something. That's his name. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah. Oh, and also thank you to HyperX for sponsoring this lecture and for sponsoring these panels. Wow, this microphone is just absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love the sound quality, and we really do appreciate HyperX for coming on and making these lectures possible. They're also going to be sponsoring our panel on Friday. So yeah, we got all sorts of stuff going. And guys, I know it's tough, work from home, but just keep positive. There's so much opportunities out there, and now is the time to seize them. So anyways, thank you guys so much. This has been Nick Durazio signing out. Bye-bye.